Fun news, there is a new ex-Blizzard Entertainment game startup called Notorious Studios that I've actually known about for ages before the announcement because, so Chris Kaleiki is the founder of said studio, and you know what? Basically, regarding community and stuff like that, he gets it. He wants all of that to be a major part of the studio, and as a part of that, he reached out to a bunch of us, and we're both doing game things. He's obviously doing it at a bigger scale than I am. But, it was good to be able to, just talk shop, hang out, chat about those things. I've seen some cool shit. Obviously, not going to be talking about anything. This is just covering that they finally went public. We'd originally planned to have, Chris on the channel in and around this time. It's just, honestly, our plans have been pure chaos. But it is really cool to see them finally do their announcement. What they're working on is really cool. You can glean what you will from what has been said publicly. I just say, my reading this is, they are, for what almost everybody in this chat probably thinks, they're kind of, you could say in a way, our guys. I think they get it. I think they get it on, on the video games. So that's basically what's going on. Overall, their mission is to build games for your guild to play. They're, in terms of things, they're going for a core fantasy, core fantasy world. It'll be very interesting to see how they build that up, how they do things. I'm definitely talking around things, but I mean, it's not like I know a massive amount either, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it's just been fun, and a bunch of what Chris has been focusing on too. I've got a good reading list from him. Man's been doing a lot of work in, basically business management, leadership, things like that. Just trying to skill up and get all of the knowledge of, how things can go wrong in an organization, how you ensure they don't go wrong. Just a decently shared library there. It's been fun to go over. Former systems and class designer on World of Warcraft of 13 years, designer of the Monk class, PvP talent system, war mode, a bunch of memorable spells, other things. The Shadow Priest revamp that everyone really liked that came in very late in the day. I believe that's one of the last things he worked on.
Yep.
So, generally speaking, real solid record. Cole Eastburn, senior visual development artist.
That's an artist.
World of Warcraft.
Yeah, that's someone people will recognize.
So you'll recognize, there's Cole's work.
Yeah.
So, damn, Chris got that guy. Yep. Right? Look at this shit. Man can do one of those pictures, I tell you. He certainly can, so, big artist. So, yep, Cole's on there. We've got Colin Volrath, who is a senior level designer on World of Warcraft. He built, partially, the immense pressure and pleasure to build the layout and design for Borealis. So, he worked in Borealis. I've opened up Google Chrome Help. So, that's some really cool stuff. More recently, the other side. You look at the other side, fuck, man, it's cool.
Gorgeous.
We've got Court Kiefer, a former gameplay engineer on World of Warcraft. Working on combat, I believe. We've got Doug Fraser, senior gameplay engineer on World of Warcraft. Their core gameplay is quite obviously a big focus for any companies making a new game. You got to get that shit right first. So it's good they have a team for that. We've got Eric Braddock as well, senior artist on World of Warcraft, and he's also done a whole bunch, a lot of stuff that you'll recognize. All these big BFA shots, that's all Eric work.
Yeah, and if you spot a pattern with these employees in terms of what games they've worked on before, let us know.
It might just be World of Warcraft. We've got Jason. Man, I don't want to mess up your surname. Kanagrata? You know what?
Kanagartnam?
Kanagartnam? That could
Kanagartnam or Kanagartnam?
Could be on the money. We've got Jason, former senior gameplay engineer on World of Warcraft. Spent his career working on core gameplay things like housing, spells, combat, and animation.
Housing?
Housing!
Where was it at?
Chris, you accidentally leaked player housing in your darn web zone. No, just joking. But yeah, look, man's working on a bunch of stuff, and he's focusing on building up the combat system. We've got Robert Moody, senior gameplay engineer and systems design, who was, senior gameplay engineer at Blizzard, 16-year game developer building systems and gameplay for the likes of World of Warcraft and Diablo. We've got Alex Okonski, senior server engineer on Overwatch.
Didn't play World of Warcraft. Didn't work in World of Warcraft though.
Yeah, oh, wow. But, I mean, yeah, there you go, working in back-end stuff.
Yep.
So that's like your sort of initial core team, but they are currently hiring, so do expect, I suppose, that to grow over time.
Did Deco did include their chief morale officer.
Ah, yes, they also have got an office dog. Speaking of the office, I believe their new office is above Frost Giant. I know they were bunking in with Frost Giant for a while. Frost Giant's another one of the Blizzard, like, I was going to say spin out, no, the ex-Blizzard staff. It's like the Team 1 studio, basically.
Yeah, because they were the ones who were working on an RTS, I believe.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, so, yeah, I think, I didn't know that they were in any relation whatsoever until I saw, I think it was Frost Giant's tweet celebrating them, said, something about our neighbors. I was like, all right, nice.
Yeah.
That's fortunate.
So for their values then, it's always fun things when you look into the values of some of the ex-Blizzard companies. Sometimes they feel a bit telling, but anyway. Think about what's best for the company and our games. Champion the mission. When the mission and your work don't align, it's your duty to sound the alarm. That is important. Eyes on the prize. You have a good clarity of purpose. That's a good rallying sort of banner for a company. Just focusing on the work, doing the work well. What's the experience? It's not about great code, great design, or great art. It's about great player experience. I mean, how often do you see lots of intricate things in games, intricate systems and stuff, and great art and all of this, but the player experience isn't up to snuff? I mean, if anything, that's been some of the awkwardness of some aspects of modern WoW, so it's always good to see that being here. So start with the player experience, work backwards to the gameplay. That is it. People first. Best ideas win. We thrive to have a tough, open, candid conversations about what's best for the games and the studio. Absolutely. You can't be too precious with ideas. You've got to focus on what works. People, not process. When you optimize for efficiency, you lose flexibility and creativity. Instead of adhering to rigid pipelines and procedures, we believe magic comes from fostering an environment that nurtures imagination. So I think that's going to mean they're probably only going to big commit to something when their prototype is fucking banging.
Yeah.
Min-max everything. Perfection is achieved not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away.
I love that idea so much.
Yes. Bloat. Bloat is not good. More is, sometimes more is merrier. Quite often more is not merrier.
Yeah.
Less is more.
Yeah, I mean, that fits so beautifully into what's the experience for me. The one video game that I will absolutely always come back to for this, because the game would have been about 5,000 times better, and I think you know what I'm going to say. God of War. God of War would have been a substantially better game if, instead of adding all that gear system shit, they just went, nah, we'll let the game's combat speak for itself, instead of having this varying difficulty based on gear score and level.
The first time I stopped playing that game and actually haven't started again was whenever I saw all the gear systems. I was like, oh, I thought I was going to be like immersed and not have to bother about gear in another game. Okay, bye. Yep. And I know I really do need to go back to that game because it is, by all accounts, an incredible game. So I will, but yeah, I didn't feel it was needed. But perhaps the people who have put a lot of time into that game can, disagree at the end game. I wouldn't know. Next, team first, then players. If we can't design a great studio, how can we design a great game? Our team is our first priority, because if the team isn't thriving, the player will never be served. And, I think that is quite obviously speaking to quite a lot of Blizzard's, current issues, right? Was it Marty O'Donnell saying, the developers of the Golden Goose, just feed the Golden Goose, treat him well, make it all be good, the game will come. And then the whole Activision thing was like the exec being like, yes, the Golden Goose, but I like foie gras.
What a story that was.
What a knob end, like.
Yeah. Well,
so
I'll just clear one thing up. Donut says the producer of God of War is so brain dead he couldn't figure out how to shoot the ceiling in the new Metroid. That was David Jaffe. He was the producer of the old God of War games, not the new God of War.
Yeah.
I don't believe he has anything to do with any of that after
don't believe so.
God of War and Twisted Metal. I believe. Also, if you're not familiar with that whole thing, that is exceedingly funny.
I'm not.
That basically a very, very big discussion over what constitutes good game design happened, and David Jaffe was the butt of a lot of jokes because he complained about a specific room being horrible game design and, you know, a shame on games and awful, awful, awful. And then everyone else who played it's like, no, this is good game design. This is a staple of Metroid games. Very easy to understand, extremely intuitive, and you've just been silly. That was
nice.
That was that. It was basically something where you shoot up at the ceiling. There are enemies on the ceiling and the other end of the ceiling. Missing or killing the enemy and another shot going through opens like a secret thing, and it's really cool and interesting. And he didn't like it. He didn't like it at all.
There you go. Oh, bit awkward for him. In terms of money, then, you need money to actually make a game. So Galaxy Interactive are a financial backer. They're also funding Lightforge Studios, which is an ex-StarCraft and Diablo startup. Dark Horse has a huge interest in making RTS games. No, I think those are the ones that are a little bit more in the D&D angle. There's that sort of role-playing game angle. But anyway, there's also One-Up Ventures, who also fund Lightforge Games and Frost Giant Studios, another game dev comprised of ex-Blizzard people and, Frost Giant making RTSs, and also Riot Games.
Yep.
So there you go, pretty big baggers. That's what people are saying. I mean, hey, shout out from their basically their roomies, Frost Giant Studios. Of course, Candace Thomas, who worked in World of Warcraft for a decent period of time, was one of Chris's colleagues. Also, Chris Kaleiki, is a longtime colleague, friend, and confidant of mine. I wish great things for him and his studio. I hope you do too. Grats on your big announcement. So lovely stuff. Then also from Brendan Mulligan, strategist and product investor at Riot Games. They have this insane player focus and ambition that is infectious and makes you excited for the future of games. Now, obviously, Brandon is going to be big upping that because Riot are investing. I will say in all of my chats with with Chris and like a little bit with some of them, they're very player and gameplay focused. Very, very player and gameplay focused. It really is the big focus for them. Then, of course, some threads from Colin. From Eric Braddock as well. So you can sort of go into those. Chris also had a thread up about just his own sort of story in that. Of course, there has been coverage, from around, as an example, VentureBeat. So you're getting picked up by the press. As for some of Chris's thoughts on Activision Blizzard, here's his statement. The challenges that Blizzard's had that have been unearthed in the last several months have been really troubling and hard to hear. It affects us as well, even though we've been out of Blizzard for a while. Yeah, he left Blizzard, it's pretty much Shadowlands launch. It was like September, last September.
Yes, I remembered specifically because it was, I believe he was involved in the Path of Ascension.
Yes.
And then it's very clear that the Path of Ascension didn't really get finished.
Yeah, he was involved in that. And it's like, okay, so the Path of Ascension, when it's good, is like you were saying, like actually pretty cool.
Yeah,
but
good,
just never got finished and didn't get the love it needed.
Yeah.
And it's like this is one of the things that we'd been talking about. I mean, what. We were chatting anyway, and then all of this goes down, and these words do ring true. And if I did not think these words rang true, I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be supporting them, right?
Yep.
So what's important is starting a culture and having no tolerance for harassment and things like that, and also being transparent and open. Extremely important. We're aspiring to do a flatter structure. None of us as leads or directors. Previously in our careers, we were all individual contributors. We were the ones who just build or code or make art or design things. We aspire to have that flatter culture where we don't have a rigid hierarchy. And there's a lot to be said in more modern ways of doing project management. One of the things with Blizzard is very tenure, very hierarchical. I think it's pretty understandable then that a bunch of people coming from Blizzard getting a bit more freedom are going to want to move to the opposite of that. Now, you do have to be aware of some issues, some things that can prop up as you scale. I think this is far more, as long as the actual like production side of it and, the task load and all of that is good. And, you've kind of got the financial runway to be able to, just kind of do those experiments and, not need the sort of beating drum right now. But as you scale, you can get into Valve-like problems.
Yes.
You can have cliques forming and things like that where, there's no hard hierarchy, but there's a soft hierarchy and you have to navigate the socials. But I think the difference there is, like me and Chris literally are in cases reading the same books. So, I know that these are things that he will be thinking of. But he does say, harassment usually comes from a subordinate, superior sort of relationship. And one of the things they're hoping is that a flatter structure can help to address some of those problems. It's a sort of thing, you can have behavior, basically be an emergent property of the systems at work. And indeed, when you have a very hierarchical structure. Especially when certain bad behaviors have not been sort of deemed clearly not okay by that hierarchy and have not been properly punished, then that really is a breeding ground for Blizzard-like things. I suppose you would hope then that, there wouldn't be that as hard of a subordinate superior sort of relationship. So that's one good thing. Yeah. And I suppose another thing there is if it encourages more like, I don't want to say like policing, that's a very strong word, but the group ensures the group is up to snuff. It's just, as always, the problem is how do you carry that to scale? And again, because we literally have some of the same reading list on the Kindle and stuff. I know of one or two books that we've actually literally both read that are partially dealing with specifically that, how you transition from startup to scale and do so right. Which is an extremely important thing, and it is one of the fundamental things that Blizzard Entertainment did not get right. So there you go. That's Notorious, a new studio that is founded by Chris Kaleiki, who worked on a whole bunch of real cool shit in WoW. And if you look through the rest of the team, as we just did, a lot of real, top quality. So they're currently hiring. So I guess if you are a game dev with quite a resume, have at it, and maybe we'll see that team expand. Now, as with all things, of course, it takes a good while to make a game. So, like with a lot of these companies, Frost Giant, Lightforged, just all the Dreamhaven sort of, group, don't expect anything super soon. Yeah. It takes a while. And one of the things these teams, I think, will generally be doing is, they'll have their sort of concepts and their ideas. They're also probably in a situation where they have like an okay enough amount of funding that they can, properly do their gameplay prototypes and find the fun. And, because, if you look at the founding teams in almost all of these companies, they're not production teams. Yeah. They are the teams to make, do the pre-production and the gameplay prototypes and to build out the Bibles and all of those things. So, I think that's what they're doing. And there'll probably be some time in the next few years where we start to really see those just lots of job announcements and things.
Yep. It'll just be a little bit of a while.
Yeah, so there we go. There's that. I'm not exactly sure what me and Chris are going to do. We might have him on here some Friday, or we may do some sort of interview in the main channel or something. But either way, it'll be a good bit of fun.
Sounds good.